Alright, so here we are, we're going to go through the Sona rune portion of the video. Now, I primarily use a kleptomancy support rune page for Sona, and I'll explain exactly why it works well for her. I have another video that details exactly how the Klepto support build works and what support champions it does or does not work with, as well as what other champions that aren't support champions would use a Kleptomancy support build, or a Kleptomancy build. So my Kleptomancy support build looks like this. Of course, I take Kleptomancy from the Resolve tree. And what Kleptomancy does is that you loot golden items from enemy champions by casting a spell and then auto-attacking them. And the way that Kleptomancy is built is that essentially, once you cast an ability or a spell, you get a Kleptomancy buff with 2 stacks on it. I believe it's for 10 seconds. And within the second of the duration for the buff, you have to auto-attack a champion to trigger Kleptomancy, or potentially not trigger Kleptomancy. Now it gets triggered each time for the gold loot, but it may or may not get triggered for the additional items. The main reason that I take Kleptomancy for Sona is because it's built into her kit anyways. She has to auto attack to trigger her power cord, so it's not really that unlikely that you're going to be getting an additional item or additional gold, a mana potion when you need it, or a skill point. There's a whole list of things that you can get from Kleptomancy, and again, that's all detailed exactly in my Kleptomancy video. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take Perfect Timing. I could take Magical Footwear if I chose to, but for the most part I almost always take Perfect Timing, so I have a stopwatch on me. I'll have to admit though, most of the time I forget that I even have the stopwatch, and when I really needed it, it's not there. I'm always going to take Biscuit Delivery as a support healer. You're almost always struggling with mana early lane game, so the Biscuit Delivery helps. Again, they always come when you need them the most, so it's good to have them there. I'm going to put my last point in the last tier into Cosmic Insight for that additional 5% cooldown reduction, meaning that I can cap at 45% instead of 40. I get 5% cooldown reduction. I'm maxed up to 45 with that additional 5 max cooldown reduction, 5% summoner spell cooldown reduction, and 5% item cooldown reduction. Some people argue that taking approach velocity might help. And what that does is that it gives you a significant boost towards movement speed, either to an ally champion that has their movement impaired, or to an enemy champion that you've impaired. And again, as we know with Sona's kit, her power cord for her purple aura is a movement speed debuff impairment, so that would trigger this. So she would get an additional 15% going towards the champion. Now, I don't know, I wouldn't argue that it's worth taking Cosmic Insight for, because I don't really often use that power cord, but it's there for argument if you needed it. Second tree is going to be the sorcery tree. We're going to take Mana Flow Band, which gives you an increase in maximum mana each time you target a champion. At 250 bonus mana, you restore 1% of your missing mana every 5 seconds. And then we're going to take Transcendence, which you gain 10% cooldown reduction when you reach level 10, and anything over the cap becomes ability power. So anything over 45%, because we got the additional 5 here, is going to give you ability power. I go with cooldown reduction, the offense, the 1 to 10% based on your level, because I want to get that Transcendence as soon as I can. And then I'm going to take Flex for adaptive power, and defense for a little bit of extra health. So that's the Klepto support build that I use for Sona. There's also the traditional A build that a lot of players use, and the way that looks is we've got Aerie in the primary sorcery tree as your keystone, and basically randomly anytime you attack or get damaged, Airy, this little worm thing, flies out and either damages your targets or comes back and heals you. So over the course of the game, it adds up to a large amount. I don't know so much that I would argue that it's worth trading out for Kleptomancy, because Kleptomancy could be hit or miss whether you succeed with it or not. And you have to be pretty aggressive to be able to get in those auto attacks, and I play a pretty aggressive Sona, so that's why I use the Kleptomancy instead of Airy. But if you're playing a little bit more defensive and wanted to be safe, you could use the Airy build with a Mana Flow Brand, Transcendence, and Gathering Storm. And then again, we would grab maybe the boots instead of the perfect timing, because we're playing a little bit safe with this build. But you could take either or. Biscuits, of course, and then we're going to take the same cooldown reduction, ability power, and health. And there is one additional support build that I often use. I don't very much use it with
Sona much anymore, but that's the Guardian build. The Guardian build puts your primary tree in Resolve, where you take Guardian, where it's a 45-second cooldown on it, but anybody that you cast a shield on or cast spells on, they get an additional bubble, a shield put on them, the Guardian bubble, or if you're just close to them, it triggers it as well. But again, it has a 45-second cooldown on it. I would also take Demolish, or I would take Shield Bash, because whenever you're using your W, your green buff, you would be shielding, and whenever you gain a shield, your next basic attack against a champion deals bonus adaptive damage, which is nice with Sona. You would take Second Wind, and then Revitalize is your last one. And what Revitalize is that heals and shields that you cast or receive are 5% stronger and increased by an additional 10% on low health targets. And a couple of the items that we built with Sona earlier, like the Ardent Censer, and I don't think we had a Crucible on her. They have an additional heal and shield power. This allows you to get a little bit of an additional bump to that as well, so you can maybe get up to like 20%, 30%. In the second tree, I would take a Inspiration tree, and I would grab Perfect Timing for the stopwatch, and for the biscuits as well. I would swap out of the cooldown reduction into Adaptive Force for this, because we don't have Transcendence and we don't have the Cosmic Insight. So that's what I would build for this, for the Guardian build. Offense, Adaptive Force, and defense. So that's it for runes for Sona. We're going to move into the live action clips right now. So stick around and I'll be right back.